Well, here's an attempt at showing you guys how to actually get one of these amps out of the case. And this is a V1143 Vox Super Beatle amp, or Beatle amp. This is one of those North Coast music heads, beautiful quality cabinet. Come through here and try to give you a little hint of how to get this thing out of here without driving you too crazy. These cabinets that North Coast make are really nice. A couple 4 Phillips on the back, nothing too crazy here. This amp's coming in, it's pretty beat up. We're going to swap it out for a better preamp. I've already done a recap on this particular one that's in here. Just the customer wanted something nicer looking. Okay, you get those 4 Phillips out of there, and this back panel comes off. And then you have this connection here, which is our speaker. Sometimes these can be a little sticky. Kind of wiggle it out of there if you can. It's always good to check these pins. They tend to slide a little bit. See, there's little pins set up in here. So I'll put this someplace where it won't get damaged. So here's what they look like inside. Got our reverb tank. I'm going to pull this out. Got our cables here. If you want to label them, that's probably a great idea. Which one goes to what. In this case, I can see it's got a smaller cable goes to the input, and the larger cable goes to the output. Got 2 little hex head screws there that hold the reverb tank, and they're mounted through rubber. I've seen so many of these that people put them together and they use any parts they can possibly find to put the darn thing together, but you can see what the screw looks like there. Let me get you in just a little bit closer to what I'm doing here. We got 2 of those, and then the tank just slides out. These are the only 2 that hold it. In the back there's 2 clips that these slide into. So this should just slide straight out. It might take some wiggling. There's a little rubber on the back side. See the little rubber here and here that it held in place in the back. Okay, so power cord's held down. I'll use this again. These aren't the original ones here. The original ones look pretty close to what you saw on the reverb tank. I use a swivel head here and then on the end of my ratchet. By the way, that's a 1/4 inch socket that I'm using here. Helps me get in there a little bit better. Seen some of these that have 2 clamps here and some that have 1. Factory, I believe, is a 2 clamp setup. I've seen a bunch of crazy things coming out of the Vox factory. It never seems to be consistent. Again, these are not the original ones. The original ones are black. They look like the ones that came out of the Reverb tank. These are shorter. Get this out and I'll show you the difference between the two of them. You can see here, they're pretty close size wise. Okay, so here's where the fun begins. This is eventually going to come out here. Keep one of these, just a little jar, something to space it so it doesn't drop down. We got 4 screws in here that hold it down. Actually, we got 2 bolts that come down. We got 2 nuts on the back side, and on the front there's some screws here. Most of the times the ones in the front are missing, or they put something crazy in there. This is where the extension for your socket goes. This is 11/32, and it goes through the holes that are in the bottom here. There's 2 of them. Going a little out of order. It's best to take those screws out first and leave the bolts in to hold it. I don't think the screws are going to want to support all the weight. Sometimes you'll see these will be a Phillips head.
Did you want a burger, Bubby?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll see the Phillips heads are holding the top here, the preamp, or God knows what someone puts in there. A lot of times these ones are just missing. Again, those are the same as what you saw me using on the power cable, similar to what's on the Reverb. On this side over here, this particular amp has the E-tuner. There's a cable to be disconnected, similar to the speaker connector, and then there's a RCA that goes on to the preamp, connects the preamp to the power amp. I'm going to remove those first before I go putting my tools in there. Again, these can take some wiggling to do. I got lucky there. Alright, so now I got a clear path in there. Again, got the swivel head here. And this is where it's nice to have that little spacer that I was talking about to keep this thing from rocking. So I've got a spacer here to keep the preamp from trying to lean. I have seen some of these amps, and I have one on my bench right now, another little Sovereign. It's one of the older ones, all wooden cabinet. It doesn't even have these holes in the bottom. Makes doing this part of the job pretty tough, especially without the swivel head. Well, there's another one of those. Okay, now we're to the 11/32 deep socket. Taking these out are not too bad. Putting them back in, I find the best way of doing it is to actually tape this nut right onto the end of the socket, so I can feed it in there. You can try to start this nut with your hand when you're putting it back together. A lot of times this will just fall to the back of the case if you're not careful. I'm going to try to get my hand in there to get this one out. And this is what she looks like. It'll be tough to get this thing to focus on it. we got one more on this side. Okay, so now rotate that around. You can see that spacer keeps this thing from just dumping out on me here. This cord out of the way. And when you're moving the power cords, be really careful. Power cord's directly connected to this power switch up here. There is a little bit of strain relief, but get some movement in here, and there's a wafer that's on the back of the power switch that you can actually break. Just messing with the power cord. So at this point, I'm going to pull that spacer out and drop this thing straight down. And then I'm going to rotate it towards me. And I'm going to set it down again. And we got a little 9-pin connector. And we're pulling that out. And we got the preamp completely up. So I'm going to set this over here on my other bench. Now you can get a look inside there, and there's our power amp. Power amp's held in place with 4 screws there that we can get to from the bottom. They're Phillips. You can see them here. I don't like to use a lot of power tools when disassembling or assembling these. These particular ones take so long to come out. I do use this on it. And there's one of them. They have these flush rings. Just make sure you can keep track of those. Sometimes they'll stay right on the amp, no problem. Got another one here, that flush ring. These lower flush rings actually hold in part of that gold piping, part of the cabinet. This thing's pretty close to being ready here. Now there's a little trick with getting the power amp out. One you got to watch out for this E-tuner here, which is really difficult to get to at this point while the amp's inside there. So when I slide this out, I'm going to slide it to the right for a bit, bring it out, and then here's those pins that hold the reverb in, or clamps I should call them, and there are some slots in the back of the power amp that need to slide over the top of it. So again, I'm going to go to the right a little bit, get away from that E-tuner. Then once I get it out a little bit, I'm going to try to slide it back over. There's not a lot of clearance on the top part of this. Those heat sinks go right up against the top of the amp. So now I got it away from the E-tuner, and then I got to get it back over this way to get around those clamps for the reverb tank. Looks like I got them. there we go. That's how you can take apart a V1143 or pretty much any of the big head Thomas Organ amps like the Beatles, Royal Guardsman, Sovereign, Westminster, Buckingham's are all pretty much the same. Hope that helps you out.